Hi, gratitude seekers, and welcome to a new episode of the Gratitude Podcast. Today, I have a really interesting and special guest for you. His name is Geoff McDonald, and he is an idea architect. He used to be an architect. He studied for 7 years in Australia, in the US, and practiced for 2 years in Australia and in the UK. He presented at conferences in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the US. And he is right now a combination between the most important things and the most sought after things in his life, ideas and architecture. So now he blends them, and he is an idea architect, and he's going to let us know more about what this is and how this works. Geoff?
Thanks, Georgian. Thanks for having me on the show. So basically, an ideas architect, I tend to work with consultants and speakers and coaches and thought leaders and experts of some kind. I help them take their ideas and ideally create products or services out of them. So it might be to help them write a book. It might be to create a seminar or design some new slides for a keynote presentation, something like that. So it's really about mostly creating either a presentation or a information product for them based on the knowledge and expertise that they have.
All right. This is really interesting. I've always admired architecture in general. And I at least here, it's really hard to get into architecture school. Like you have to take personal one-on-one hours with the teacher before you get into school, and you have to learn a lot of things that they don't teach you in high school to actually get to the university. And it seems something really hard to do and complicated. How is it actually?
I must have got lucky. I must have came in through the side door or something. In Australia, it was just a case of having enough marks, and if you got enough marks from your high school results, you just got in. So we didn't have to do interviews and things like that way back when I did it. So maybe that's changed now. But and it's certainly the great thing about the architecture study is that you do cover such a wide range of topics. So you're talking about basic engineering, you're talking about materials, you're talking about design, you're talking about history. There's a whole lot that goes through it, and that's why I loved it. But in the same way, when it got to practice, I just found it was too many details for me. I'm much more a big picture guy, and the details bored me.
Yeah.
I studied for so long, but when I got to practice, I just didn't like it. I just found it really boring.
Yeah, I'm sure it is from many points of view, because I've seen some sketches, and I've seen all the details that go into them, and it's wow. But I do admire like when I go traveling, I think it's not just my case, but a lot of the things that we admire when we go traveling are the buildings, the architecture of different places. And for me, that's amazing to see such wonders. It's wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Same for me. There's a lot of great buildings out there. There's a lot I don't like, but that's what goes with the course. You know, you're not going to like them all.
Yeah, I'm sure. So getting back to our topic today, the first thing that I would like to ask you about is, what is your favorite quote on gratitude?
Well, my favorite quote, and I don't know exactly, but basically it was that gratitude is the antidote to anger. And I went through a bit of struggle a few years ago where I had a few financial problems when a business partnership fell over and all the rest of it. And I was just so frustrated with a whole bunch of things, and I was getting angry about a whole bunch of things. And up until that point, I think I dismissed gratitude. I'd always thought it was some new agey thing that didn't mean anything to anybody. And I thought people were kidding themselves if they were trying to be grateful as a means to being happy. And then when I was going through this and I saw this quote, I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And that's when I started to explore it a bit further. So really that one quote changed everything for me around gratitude, because up to that point, I basically said it was a silly idea.
Yeah, totally. It's a matter of getting there and actually experiencing gratitude and experience the power it has, and that's when you actually understand it. Because until then, it's just a concept, just
Yeah,
something.
and it was very much the idea that you can't be angry and grateful at the same time. They're really opposites. You can try it out if you like. Try to be angry and try to be grateful at the same time, and you really can't do that.
Yeah, it's true.
That's why I think it's beautiful as an antidote. If you want to be not that, then maybe you try that one instead.
Yeah, exactly. And usually, how I see things, at least, anger, it has a more destructive way of expressing itself, while gratitude uh, helps build, building upon the things that are already good in your life and things like that. And this is what I think works as a parallel between the two.
Yeah. I think anger is often very destructive. Like, we can do things when we're angry that we regret. But there's also an upside to anger. Anger is like one of the most powerful emotions we can have. And it can get us into action. So it can be a really motivating force, that I can get really angry about something that forces me to go, okay, I'm going to do this, and get onto it. So it can be really useful from that perspective. It's just that when it becomes out of control anger and not focused or funneled anger, then we can cause all sorts of damage. And that's when we're dangerous to ourselves, to other things, and other people as well. So yeah, there's the two sides to anger around that. But certainly gratitude is, let's say it this way, it's not necessarily got the same emotional intensity to it. It's probably more of a, what's the way of saying it? It's like, I don't want to dismiss it as it's being light or soft or anything like that, because I think they don't give it justice around what it is. So if anger is strong and powerful, gratitude is almost like that platform or that foundation that we can use for everything else. So it's really strong in a soft way, if that makes sense. Whereas anger is strong in a violent way, possibly.
Yeah, exactly.
Gratitude can be strong in a soft way. And perhaps it's a polite way. Maybe that's a way of saying it. We can be strong with our gratitude, but in a polite way. Because I think when I'm grateful for stuff, I'm much more polite to everything around me. Certainly if I'm grateful for what's going on for me, the way I interact with other people is softer and more polite and more respectful to them as well. And I think that's where the power comes from.
That's a wonderful perspective. Yeah. We really do tend to interact with other people and with the exterior in another way when we are feeling grateful. And it is a powerful way. It is a strong way, even if it's not aggressive. Somehow it's not strong in a very obvious way somehow.
Yeah, there's probably some good quotes from the Buddha or something like that around that, where the soft way can be the way. I think I always like the analogies back to nature, like with water or something like that. And a few drops of water can be soft and beautiful, like when it's raining, and that has one effect. But we can also have rain that's like a thunderstorm that's really powerful, that has a different effect. And they're both useful. I just think there's also I think the intensity is crucial, because anger, you just can't maintain that for very long. It tends to be strong, short outburst, whereas gratitude is something that could be your even keel, that just keeps going and becomes your rock for a long period of time. So it's very steadying. That's it, steadying. So it's steadying and ultimately calming, and that's why we can keep being in that space. So if we want to get through a challenge, it actually works to be in a soft, smooth space rather than being in a strong, violent sort of space, because you're just not going to be able to keep that energy up for too long.
Exactly. That's wonderful. So you were mentioning anger. what do you do when it's hard to be grateful, like when you're really angry or when you are in difficult situations in your life?
Sometimes I struggle, but ideally I'd go for a walk. So I know that I've just got to get my body moving. So part of that could be, I love to get on my bike and just go for a ride. I love to do some exercise or even just walking. But whatever I need to do, it's like I've just got to shift the body. So if I
Mhm.
just sat in the chair, I'd just stew around the anger for too long. Whereas if I just get up and ideally go for a walk, even if it's half an hour, ideally, outside in nature in some way, but something like that just lets the body just settle and hopefully distracts the mind and gets it back onto an even keel and thinking about something else. Whereas literally when we're sitting down, we just hang on to it. There's nowhere for the anger to really leave. But moving the body lets it just sort of escape and we can settle down again. So that's my secret weapon, going for walks.
That's awesome. I think it's something that we can all do easily, and um, it really
There's a lot
does
of
shift.
studies now saying that walking is probably the most powerful exercise we can do. By all means, we need to get the heart rate up. By all means, we need to lift heavy things and get the body moving. We also need to be flexible. But walking seems to be one that the body has a natural rhythm for it. If you think back to caveman days, that the natural response for someone in that situation was they were moving consistently and slowly through the day. Whereas today, most of our lifestyles are we're sitting at our desks and on computers all day, and that's actually not what our body was designed for. It was actually designed to move slowly for a long period of time, and walking is primarily how we do that. And probably we're not doing enough walking. And even whilst getting on a treadmill or doing cardio is useful in some ways, or even doing intense exercise like lifting weights, or doing slow exercise like yoga, it's that long, steady walking over half an hour or maybe an hour or even 2 hours or more that the body just settles into a nice little rhythm, and that's what it's designed to do. We're not designed, we didn't evolve sitting down, we evolved moving. And if you think about most animals, like your dog out in the backyard is probably a good example. He's either asleep or he's moving. He doesn't just stand there on the spot all day. And I think that's as human beings, that's probably what we need to be doing. It's just we need to be moving.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this has some impact also on our health. And usually, for me at least, when I'm not feeling great physically, I find it a bit harder to be grateful. It's like um, the unease that I feel in the body makes it grabs my attention, and it's harder when I want to refocus on the good things. And yeah, I think walking, and also the thing with walking also is fresh air. Uh,
Yeah,
that's also very important for our brain and um, for our body in general, actually.
well, that's actually the principle behind exercise, that it's oxygenating, putting oxygen through our bodies. We're having to breathe harder, the lungs and the chest and the heart have to beat more, and it pushes more oxygen through the body. And I'm no expert, and I have heard them talk about oxygen and cancer and that sort of thing. And if you can get the body moving, it actually does make for a healthier body just by having oxygen through the body. That's what we're designed to do.
Awesome, yeah.
Mm.
So, in your life, you mentioned something about having had a partnership that didn't go so well. I think that might not be the easiest part of your life, but do you feel like gratitude has helped you in that period, or where when you found out this what you said about gratitude, that it's a way um, to choose it over anger?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was one of the crucial things that, as I said, the walking was one of the physical things that got me moving. But the whole principle around gratitude for me is to actually look for things that are actually okay. Whereas when things are going bad, it's really easy to focus on the bad things all the time. And it's not just good or bad. Sometimes it's just like, it's actually like, the idea to say that I'm grateful to be alive is quite a strange one at one level, because when we don't consciously live in that space, we're always thinking, oh, it's good that I have a new car, it's bad that I have an old car, and it's this good, bad dialogue. But sometimes it's just sitting there and being comfortable with, I'm actually grateful just for this chance to sit and think about something even. And I think that's where the idea of small mercies comes in. A small mercy being, hey, I'm actually just really happy that I've got that. Whereas we can be really bad to ourselves, if you like, that it's like, where's my food? Where's my thing? Oh, that internet's not working. Oh, my phone's not working. Or they haven't paid my bill. And we can find all sorts of things to complain about. And gratitude, I think, just takes us out of that complaint stage and into the point where we can actually celebrate things in life. You know, it's actually good that, you know, like, isn't this amazing? I'm sitting in Australia, it's 8 o'clock in the evening, and here we are, you're sitting on the other side of the planet, and we're having a live conversation. That's
Exactly, yeah.
It'd be really easy to go, oh, damn, internet doesn't work. But that's a bloody miracle that we can actually even have this conversation. And I think these are the things that are around us every day, and most of the time they're almost invisible to us. And I think that's what happens particularly in our relationships as well. We take them for granted. It's really easy to just know them to be there or expect them to be there. And I think that's where gratitude is just taking those moments to just go, hey, this is actually pretty thrilling when you think about it. And so it's not just, it can be a neutral where it's just like, oh, that's really nice, but it can also be a really powerful thing that actually is exciting if we actually stopped and thought about what's actually around us and in our lives and the people that care about us and the things they do for us and all those sorts of things. There's a lot of miracles going around without being flippant about it.
Exactly. We tend to, I think there is a name for this, but it doesn't come to mind right now. After a while, we tend to take things for granted. It's like, of course, it's like it's been there forever. And
that's actually how the brain is designed to work.
Yeah.
So if you think about the brain, all this neuroscience stuff, the brain is really energy intensive. So a lot of our energy that we have and put into our body goes to running this brain. That's how big it is. So the brain takes a whole bunch of shortcuts. So if it had to think about, oh, yes, I really love my partner, or I'm really grateful for the internet all the time, we'd never have any attention to actually get anything done. So it short circuits and collapses everything just to accept that and get on with it. So it becomes transparent or invisible for us. We don't even see it because the brain's then looking out for whatever else it's got to look out for. So that's like our inbuilt system that's shutting down. It's actually not designed to be grateful. So therefore, we've actually got to make the effort to be grateful because our brain's going in the opposite direction of just accepting how things are. The brain's ultimately looking out for changes that could be dangerous. So when things are the same all the time, it's trying to collapse them so we don't see them anymore. So it actually takes something to be grateful. It's not just a nice thing. It actually forces the brain to stop and consider what's actually going on. And that's that piece around being present, because I think that's where all the choices are made. When we're not stopping and checking in and being aware of what's going on, we're not actually choosing what we could be choosing. We're just accepting and adopting what's already in play. And I think that robs us of life in a big way.
Yeah, wonderful idea. And I also believe that reconnecting with your heart, not in a like a physical way, but in an emotional way, that helps to feel, to try to feel more and to try to enjoy the things you see more, not from a mental perspective but from an emotional one. I think that's also helpful.
And that's been a real journey for me because I'm really a head person. You know, I love the ideas and the mental stuff. So to actually drop down into my body and experience the emotions has been I guess it's been the last 10 years that I've actually started to explore that. And sometimes I don't like it, but most of the time that's where the happiness and the joy lives as well. So, you know, I think that is where we experience life. Like, it's that old analogy, if we only experience life through a book, it would actually be pretty shallow. Whereas we live in our emotions. That's really where the colour of life is in our emotions.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's mostly a challenge for men. Like we we tend to be more in our heads and to be more goal oriented and less of um, about our emotions. But yeah,
And that's the caveman again. So back in the caveman days, the man had to go out and chase down the saber-toothed tigers and find the food, and that was stressful stuff. So we had to focus on that, whereas the women stayed back and they had to be the nurturing, which meant they had the caring, loving role, whereas men had the action, aggressive sort of role, if you so to speak. So our brains, we are wired that way. But it's also, if we can get that, just because I'm wired that way doesn't mean I have to live that way. We get a choice around it. And I think that's what the great opportunity, and I think it's slowly coming through that men, you know, like you and me are actually engaging with our emotions, and, you know, I think we're better for it.
yeah, totally, totally. It's through emotions that we live this world and we experience it, and the emotions are the ones that we remember in time much more than facts. Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember years ago when I first traveled to Europe, I had two cameras. One was my big one, which had my big lens. And because I'd studied architecture, I think I took about 5 rolls of film, which was a lot of film those days. And I took all these buildings. And on the other camera was like my instant camera. And I took pictures of the people that I was with. And when I came home, I had all the printed pictures, and I had hundreds of pictures of all these buildings. And I was like, boring, 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 boring. But every time I looked at the people pictures, it was like, oh, great. I remember when we laughed about so-and-so. And I remember when this happened. And the people in the pictures were the ones that gave me the greatest joy, whereas the buildings, which is what I thought I went to see, which I suppose I did at one level, they were the boring bits when I came home. So I thought that was a nice lesson for me around where life really happens.
that's wonderful, wonderful example, really. Um, Indeed, we tend to appreciate relationships and emotions much more than we on an emotional level than we do for uh, physical things like anything
Yeah.
actually.
At the end of the day, they say when we're about to die, we don't look back and think about the things in our life. We think back to the people. So we might as well start thinking about that now rather than waiting till we die.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So what I also wanted to ask you is, when did you get to discover gratitude, like really on a personal level? Did you have a meaningful experience around it, or how did this happen?
Well, the quote I mentioned earlier was probably the turning point, because I realized that, as I said at the start, I think I dismissed gratitude as just being this fluffy, new agey thingo. And then I guess I'd been reading a few Buddhist books and they started talking about it. I thought, oh, well, I suppose at least the Buddhists are talking about it. So maybe there's something there, because I was doing meditation and stuff. And it was only when I saw that quote and started to realize that it was the antidote to my anger and my frustration, I thought, oh, okay, even if it's fluffy, it still might be useful. And I thought about it as a useful thing, like a practical tool. And I sort of got into it from then. But I guess over time, as I've done a practice, so my usual practice around it is most days I have a journal where I draw the line down the middle. On one column, I write down, what am I grateful for? And I usually try to come up with at least 20 different things. And on the other column, I write down, what am I looking forward to? And
Wow.
what I realized was there was just taking the time to do that was actually a really nourishing experience. It was nice to just sit there and think about my life for only 5 minutes to actually do that. And that's when it started to be, I guess, took it out of my head to actually give me experience of gratitude. Because when I'd done meditations around it, I just thought, oh, well, not getting this. But when I started to do this through my journal over a period of time, I realized there was things that consistently came up that I was grateful for. And there'd be days where I'd write down all these things, and there'd be days where I wrote down all the people in my life. And over time, I think the people are winning. I'm writing people down, I'm writing things down. But it's also that sense of, I think it's just, again, taking the moment to be with whatever's going on in my life and actually just identify where it's going, in ways that I'm really happy about or I'm actually enjoying. Or it might be just minor things. It might be that I'm really pleased just to be able to sit down for 5 minutes so I can write in this journal, because I know somewhere around the world there's probably some guy who's doing an 18-hour day and he's getting paid peanuts for it, but at least I got to sit down today, and actually write. So it's just taking that moment. And I think that's where I connected it with my heart rather than just being in my head around it. And so that was probably the turning point, actually doing it over a long period of time. And then more recently, I've just read a book called, I've actually got it here, I just borrowed it from the library. It's called Hardwiring Happiness. And it's by Rick Hansen. And he's basically, so he's got a medical background. And what he's saying is that our brain is actually wired up to give more credit to negative experiences than positive experiences. So when we have, and this is all a safety device. So if you think back to caveman days, when something goes wrong, if we eat the wrong food, we could die. But if we eat the right food, we get a little bit of nourishment and it's no big deal. So the choice about eating wrong food is magnified and the other one's minimized. And so our negative experiences take a lot more brain space than our positive ones do. And if we want to be grateful, we've actually got to almost magnify the good things or the gratifying things over the negative things. So what I used to do was actually just write my list as quick as I could, and sometimes I'd sit there. But what he says is, if you can actually spend 10 to 15 seconds, and that's not a lot of time, 10 to 15 seconds enjoying the good things, then you actually expand the desirable part, the gratitude part, compared to the negative part. And if we can do that over time, we'll slowly wire our brains to more grateful things than just having all that negative stuff hanging around, all that less desirable stuff. So I've started playing with that a little bit lately and just trying to extend writing in my journal so it takes me maybe 10 minutes instead of 5. But it's more enjoyable because I'm sitting there thinking about a friend, and it's like, and it's so much more enjoyable rather than just being in the headspace of going tick, 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 tick. And I think that's a big practice for people, is to just see if we can extend those good moments for 10 or 15 seconds and live them out rather than just sort of ticking them off and moving on. Your brain will reward you for it.
This is wonderful. This is also what I've been I'm trying to do with this podcast for it to be consistent and for helping people, helping our audience to find ways that are great for them to use to be grateful consistently, because this will help in rewiring the brain and in seeing the world in a different way. If you just do it once a month, every period of time, it's not actually enough, and it will be good in that moment, but it's much better to do it much more often, and that will be a lasting change, I think.
Absolutely. I think all this neuroscience stuff, it really comes down to that we're actually, in the same way that an athlete trains his body, that everything we do through our day is training our mind. And when you look at someone who's 60 and happy, it's because they've trained their brain to be happy over a long period of time. There's no happy gene. You can take pills, but that's a whole other story. But if you want to be happy, even if you're not happy right now, you can actually start to train yourself little by little, and over a longer period of time, you can have that as your natural way of being in the world. And that's got to be, well, what else is there to choose, really? You'd choose that every time, wouldn't you? It's just taking consistent action over a period of time, and that's what we can all have. And that's certainly what I'm aspiring to. I'd love to be happy more and more often rather than defaulting to sad or angry or something else.
Yeah, exactly. And what I also love about your idea, about what you do, is the fact that you have things that you look forward to.
Yeah.
I think this is also a big part of happiness in general. To have things, beautiful things that you look forward to, and this is really awesome.
And it could be as simple as I'm going to have ice cream. You know, it doesn't have to be a big thing. And that also counters the depression side of it. So one of the challenges around depression is that their mental view of the world is that there's nothing to look forward to. So simply in the same way gratitude gets us present, being able to say, I'm looking forward to something builds the muscle as an antidote to any risk of depression. So you're building optimism, or you're building a desire and an excitement to something that's going to happen later that day or the next week, or maybe a goal for a year down the track, or whatever it might be. And like the gratitude journal, it could be something as simple as, I'm really looking forward to some ice cream when I finish this, or it could be, I'm looking for a world trip at the end of the year when I've made all my money, or whatever else you've done. So it can be small and it can be bigger and it can be somewhere in between.
Yeah, and I think the combination is actually amazing because, for instance, I sometimes have I struggle sometimes to think about positive things in the future, but that only happens when I'm not in a positive state right now. And getting getting into a positive state by thinking about the things that you are grateful and feeling the things that you are grateful, and afterwards looking forward to things that you're looking forward to actually. And this is amazing, and I think it's a powerful duo.
Yeah, absolutely. They're I don't know, Batman and Robin or something, but it's a good combination.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Really, really strong and really to the point. I love it. I love it. Um,
And so simple as well. Like, seriously,
yeah,
if you can't take
exactly.
5 minutes to sit down and write down 10 things that you're looking forward to, well, life must be hard.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think this also helps with rewiring the brain. Like instead of thinking, "Oh, the future is so gloomy and it's so dark," and you actually rewire your brain to look forward to things and to think, okay, things, positive things are coming, and I'm looking forward to living, to experiencing life. This is wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, we live in a world where the media knows that the negative things have more impact on us. So the media is full of negative stuff and less desirable stuff, and they create drama. And the same, a lot of the TV shows, particularly the reality TV, they're all designed to create drama, to make them interesting, because that's what stimulates our brain.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
we actually have to work a little bit harder just to find those sweet spots for ourselves where we get a little bit of joy or a little bit of happiness. And as we keep saying, it's about each little spot adds up. I think the analogy almost to smoking is a really good one, because one cigarette doesn't kill you, but if you keep doing it long enough, it'll probably kill you. And it's the opposite of that. Is one little piece of happiness is not going to make a lot of difference. It'll be fun for a little bit, but if you keep doing that consistently through your day and most days over a long period of time, you'll actually get that result of being happier.
This is great stuff. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. So what I was really curious to talk with you about is if you could go back in time, like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, or in a time when you weren't feeling too grateful with your life and with yourself, and what would you tell your younger self about this, about gratitude?
I think I don't know what the exact words would be, but it'd certainly be, this is good stuff. You know, it's almost as simple as that. This is good stuff. Do it, and you'll be a better person because of it. And I'd love to think it's like, I know they're starting to do mindfulness and meditation and these sort of things in school now, and I just wish I had it in school. It's just like, because I was always the stressed out little kid. You know, I know actually that's not true. I was probably a happy little kid, But then once I started getting a bit older, and maybe when I became an adult, I started stressing out. So for a long time, I always just stressed out about stuff, and I was anxious and I was nervous, and I was always struggling just trying to get my head around life. And I just wish I knew that much earlier, that it's like most of the time, you don't have to worry about all that stuff, because all that stuff you just imagine is probably not going to happen anyway. But if I had the tools of just being grateful and being in the moment and just looking at life differently, I'd probably be, well, let's say it this way, instead of where I am now, I'd be 10 years ahead or 20 years ahead of where I am and where I want to be. So
Yeah.
that'd be what I'd say. It's just like, I just wish I'd grab this and run with it, because it's gold.
Yeah, I totally agree with this. And this has been my experience also, always wanting to be further ahead and not being too satisfied with where I was at that point, and enjoying the age I was at, and the experiences, and always wanting to be on the next step and things like that. And
Well, one of the places that actually comes from is that all the marketing and advertising we see. So the
yeah,
whole point of marketing and advertising is to say, you're actually not okay right now. You're actually flawed, or you're broken, or you're not as good as you could be, because what you need is this wonder product. And once you have this wonder product, this new pair of shoes, this new shirt, this new car, new whatever, then you'll be okay. So we're constantly told through all our media that the world's bad. Then all the advertising telling us we're not bad because we need this new wonder product. But I think there's a major shift. So I track a lot of trends and stuff, and there's a major shift going on at the moment, that we're starting to turn away from this consumer-orientated, this material-orientated world. And a lot more of us are looking internally, where ultimately happiness can happen. You know, we can't get happy for very long from stuff outside of us. The long-term happiness comes from inside of us. And so we just need to be alert to some of the things that are trying to influence outside of us. And I'm all for advertising and marketing. You know, businesses need to attract customers. We just need to be aware of the impact they have on us, and not let the news tear us down and think the world's all wrong, and not let marketing think that I'm flawed and broken. We need to be really clear that that's actually a message that I can choose to accept or not. And I'm actually fundamentally okay. I may still want that pair of shoes, but it's not going to make me a better person. So it's choosing in those ways, rather than just being I guess, a victim at one level, without actually consciously choosing or thinking about what's actually going on and what's trying to attract our attention. So if I can choose where I put my attention, then ultimately I'm in charge.
exactly. Yeah, this is wonderfully said. Perfect. And I didn't think about this, and I think it's a really good way of seeing things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just like, part of being grateful is being present, and actually in that moment, just checking what's actually going on. Because when we're stressed, or even when we're just in motion, we often are just assuming and presuming about how the world is. Whereas if we can actually just take a moment and go, what's really going on here? You know, it's like checking in here and taking that moment to realize that you were sitting on the other side of the world and here I am. And normally, if we're in a hurry, we wouldn't consider that, but that's actually magic. But we've got to stop and consider and be aware of what's actually going on to get that piece of magic in our lives.
Yeah, and even more wonderful and even more amazing and magical, like you said, is the fact that right now, sometime in the future, right now, people will be listening to us having this chat from all around the world, and they will be tuning in and they will be listening to this, and this is amazing. Like, it would be like 100 years ago, it would have been impossible to us even meet, actually.
Yeah.
And right now,
the other thing that's really extraordinary about it is it's actually free. Like, yes, you've got to pay your internet, and I've got to pay my internet, and you had to buy the microphone, and I had to buy the computer. But once we've got those things in play, this is actually free, right?
exactly.
The cost to actually do this and have these conversations and effectively run your own radio station, because that's what a podcast is. It's like running your own radio station. That's an extraordinary idea. Like when I was in school, no one was talking about running your own radio station. You had to be a zillionaire to do that. Whereas now, for a handful of bucks, we can create our own interviews and we connect with people. And, and it's also that, so Yenny Stromgren, who you spoke to, connected me to you. And it's all just those little connections. It's a bit like the brain, connecting little things over time. All of a sudden just keeps expanding things, and it makes the world go round. It's spectacular.
Yeah, this is actually amazing, and I'm really thrilled to be in this time here and to enjoy this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
something to be grateful for, huh?
Exactly. Yeah. And you are mentioning the fact that people are great reasons to be grateful, and are really important for us and for our happiness. Do you want to mention a few people that you are grateful for?
Yeah, for sure. I'd have to always start with my mum and dad, because I think it's one of those things where you just go, oh yeah, of course they're just my mum and dad. And I look at it, when I actually stop and think about it, what they actually gave up for me and my brothers and sisters is pretty spectacular. So my dad basically just worked a whole bunch of jobs so he could feed the family. And then my mum gave up any sense of career so she could actually have us grow up. And that might be, I get that that's rewarding for my mum as well. And she probably gave up a whole bunch of stuff to have 4 kids grow up and be happy and healthy. And, I can see, it's sort of funny that back then my parents had 4 kids, whereas a lot of parents these days have 2, and it's a struggle. And I get that it's hard. It's a difficult challenge. The world's more complex and all the rest of it. Being a parent is a tough gig. So I really value my mum and dad. And also some of my close friends like Taruni and Yenny and Helen and Mike and some of these people, and Suzanne, who've actually really been my rocks for me over the last few years when it's been a little bit tough. And even down to, I know a lot of people, but I don't have a lot of close friends. I've only got that small handful, and I just wish I'd done it better, or not better, but I want to thank them for being part of what I've got right now. And sometimes I just wish I'd been less stingy about my friendships, because I don't always ask for help or tell people what's going on. So I'm really glad they're still with me and supporting, and look forward to the good times ahead.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I think that it's not really easy to ask for help and to open up and to be vulnerable and to really have deep friendships, and it's wonderful to value the ones that we have.
Yeah, and I think it's that man thing again, that us men, our default is not to do that very well. But I'm learning, I'm getting better.
Yeah. So where can people find you? Where can people see your work, Geoff?
The easiest way is to go over to my website. So Another Modern Miracle, that we have websites. So geoffmcdonald.com is my website, and I've written a bunch of books, and I'm running a program called Project Passion. There's almost 1,000 blog posts. There's 90 odd podcasts. There's a lot of stuff there, and it's mostly about ideas and books and how you can make money from your ideas. So head over there, and hopefully it makes some sense.
All right. So head over to Geoff's website and see what an idea architect does. And thank you for listening. And thank you, Geoff, for being with us and for sharing your amazing tips. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Great to have this conversation and just have a chance to stop and think about all the wonderful things in life. So thank you.
Thank you.